Chapter 2553 Coveting the Treasure. The wind on the grass sea finally loosened the taut strings a little. Among the 6 generations of people, some were sitting on the ground, panting heavily. Morgan rubbed her eyes hard, trying to force back the stinging sensation. King Arthur held his sword steady, and the heartbeat in his breastplate slowly shifted from the war drum back to the military drum. Oreb whispered a prayer, and the cross drew a tiny arc in the air. Everyone's eyes were brimming with tears of excitement and exhilaration. 6 generations of them regained their dignity, thanks to Zhang Yi. At least now, they are no longer prey in the eyes of the alien race. The way everyone looked at Zhang Yi was one of reverence, as if he were a god. That is the hope of all mankind. Zhang Yi turned to them and said in a gentle tone, "I'm sorry to have made you all anxious. The meeting continues, and so do we. Now we can discuss the other terms." After the 4 main ethnic groups targeting Huaxiu Kingdom shut up, Huaxiu Kingdom's territory was secured. Ling returned to his side and stood quietly, not returning to the alternate dimension. This was a form of intimidation towards others. No one questioned her origins anymore, and no one dared to question her, because the answer has already been given to them. The combined oppression of the 4 races was countered and suppressed. Their overwhelmingly powerful actions inspired awe. All eyes of the various races around the hall returned to the round table in the center. The noise subsided, and the voices of the deliberators gradually rose. The wind was still blowing over the grass, over the armor plates, and over the invisible curtain of swords. The sky over the Australian continent remained overcast, like a huge iron lid pressing down on everyone's heads. A long, oppressive, and chilling gray that makes your heart race. The aftershocks of the battle still linger on the vast grasslands, scorch marks, collapsed ground, and ripples in the torn air. The residual energy in the air still rubbed against each other, occasionally splashing up tiny blue-white sparks, as if reminding all onlookers that what had just happened here was a battle that could rewrite the fate of contemporary humanity. After quickly stopping his wounds, Gu Shan of the Ironclad clan said in a deep voice, "We acknowledge that the Huaxiu Kingdom can maintain its complete territory." The second to speak was Kong, the representative of the Celestial clan. His voice did not come from his mouth, but was transmitted to the eardrums of every powerful person present through air vibration and resonance. The voice was distinct, carrying a haughty air of looking down from the clouds, yet it was also noticeably more restrained. Based on your current combat strength, the Huaxiu Kingdom is qualified to continue existing on the surface of Earth, and is not among those we plan to eliminate. Gu Shan of the Ironclad clan said in a deep voice, "On this continent, any force that wants to survive must demonstrate its strength in order to sit at this table. You have already shown that you possess power no less than that of any other race." His use of the word strength was quite meaningful. The meaning is clear. It's not about showing mercy to the Huaxiu Kingdom, but rather that they acknowledge Zhang Yi's fighting prowess as sufficient to uphold the sovereignty of a civilization. Guchuan of the Titan tribe lowered one of his eyes, which contained light intertwined with timelines. He stared at Zhang Yi and Ling and said in a low voice, "It is your existence that gives this tribe the right to negotiate. The fate of a nation or a country rests on the shoulders of one person. This may explain why all races spare no effort in investing resources in a select few, allowing them to grow and ultimately protect their race. The Fong Wolf clan, on the other hand, couldn't be so arrogant anymore." Kroba's wounds writhed within the fissures, and his self-healing flesh continued to throb and regenerate. He growled in a low voice, but did not continue to slam the table and shout as before. He just stared at Zhang Yi, as if he were staring at prey that he couldn't touch for the time being. On the human side, Morgan, King Arthur, Saladin, and others breathed a sigh of relief, leaning back as if they had just surfaced from drowning and were finally taking their first breath. They knew all too well what that had just meant. If Zhang Yi can't control the situation, there will only be one conclusion. The territory of Huaxiu was divided up and even designated as a transitional buffer zone, which is tantamount to using one civilization as a firewall to block the advance of other races. For the entire 6 generations of humanity, that was a forced, slow execution. But now, the situation has changed. It's not about humans seeking survival, but about at least one human civilization sitting at the table, recognized as inviolable territory. King Arthur said to Morgan in a low voice, "That's enough. As long as there's a place on Earth that we can name, we're not animals." Morgan nodded, his eyes clearly reddening. He wasn't even aware that his fingertips were still trembling. Zhang Yi, however, did not show any exaggerated expression. He didn't flaunt it, nor did he deliberately adopt a victor's posture. He knew that he could save face, but the real trouble was yet to come. Because at that very moment, a new voice arose. It did not come from those races whose arrogance had just been suppressed. Instead, it came from that corner where they had always quietly observed and never spoken. There stood several rather eerie figures. A being dressed in what appears to be a white lab coat from the old world. His body was not a completely stable entity. It was like semi-solid mercury constantly adjusting its shape. His face resembled that of a human youth, yet he had no eyebrows or pupil boundaries. His eyes were like deep wells. The other one was surrounded by a layer of black mist-like substance. The mist constantly condensed into new forms, sometimes a flowing cloak, sometimes slowly undulating like tentacles. If you stare at it for too long, your eyes will start to hurt, as if you are forcibly memorizing something that shouldn't be remembered. They had been there all along, but remained silent. They seemed disdainful of getting involved in the recent squabble between the various races. They had come only to witness the event. Like a hunter sitting in the shadows watching a pack of wild beasts fight over territory, only to stand up at the last moment, not to join the fight, but to declare, "Whose hunting ground is this?" On the human side, Morgan's expression changed and he whispered a warning. "Be careful. Those two are not ordinary ancient races." He recognized him, because Columbia's research department had maintained contact with the Doomsday region and Deep 51. The one in white robes is the representative of the Abyss clan, named Manchi. The one in the black mist is an envoy of the Nightmare clan, named Inyan. The names of these two races are marked as high-risk contact targets in many ancient archives. The civilization they represent is not a purely physical predator like the Fong Wolf clan, but rather a more advanced civilization. Representatives from both clans looked at Zhang Yi and Ling, and then spoke one after the other. The Nightmare clan spoke first. His voice seemed to appear simultaneously in everyone's minds, bypassing the eardrums and being directly etched into consciousness, making it impossible to distinguish whether it was him speaking or you thinking. "There's something we'd like to clarify." His tone was calm, even gentle, like a professor exchanging academic materials. "This is the chaos of the sixth generation of humanity. The woman behind you, what is her origin?" Chapter 2554 Coveting the Treasure 2. At the same time, all eyes turned to Ling, who was standing behind Zhang Yi. The Nightmare clan's one thought immediately targeted Ling's existence. The Ihen race, the remnants of the Sword Knights, were once able to chase after the Druk gods and cut them down like vegetables. Even if it is just remains, it is enough to arouse the covetousness of many advanced civilizations. Anyone who isn't an idiot would understand just how terrifyingly important she is. When the Nightmare clan spoke, it meant that they had set their sights on Ling's human form. After hearing Inyan's words, Ling slowly raised her eyes. There was no emotional fluctuation in her eyes. She was simply observing. Her human form has perfectly standard facial features. Symmetrical, without any unnecessary sharp edges, quiet, indifferent, yet without any bloody killing intent. She is like a long sword that has been honed long enough, polished to a shine, waiting to be used. Zhang Yi did not avoid the question. He knew he would be asked about this sooner or later, and there was no way to avoid it. However, since he dared to openly bring out Ling to help him fight, it means he had the confidence to deal with this situation. So, he stated the facts very directly. She was left to me by Tianyu Palace. A gift from the Ihen tribe. Those two short sentences instantly changed the atmosphere of the room. Those ancient race representatives who had previously maintained their arrogance and the idea that we are the surviving overlords of the previous era showed a noticeable increase in seriousness on their faces when they heard the words, I Hen Clan. Some races even unconsciously sat up straight, as if attending some kind of high-level meeting. Even though they did not witness it firsthand, the Ahen race had once been high-ranking enforcers and adjudicators, and the names of those four knights had appeared in legends from many eras. In fact, they have appeared in various civilizations and races, and they are all the highest-level gods who sealed demons into hell and were invincible beings. Sword Knights represent the purest and most extreme form of combat power. The black mist in the Nightmare Clan's Yin Yen's eyes rippled slightly, like a small wave of emotion. He said softly, It seems that she is indeed the remains of the Sword Knight. No wonder. No wonder she has such a high level of control over her superpowers. We are very interested in her. His tone was so calm, as if he were talking about borrowing a book, as he slowly looked at Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi couldn't see his face clearly because it was shrouded in a layer of black mist. That was a spiritual mist. The Nightmare Clan were beings that existed between illusion and reality. As their name suggests, the Nightmare Clan possessed extremely powerful spiritual bodies, capable of invading the mental world of others and killing them silently. Your Excellency Chaos, could you temporarily hand her over to us for research? Yin Yen stated his request in a calm tone, polite, but without any sense of asking for favors. It sounds more like giving instructions or commands. We have the utmost respect for the Sword Knight, and we hope to decipher the path of life's leap from her remains. We will not harm her. We simply need to study her structure. Don't worry, we'll return it to you after we've finished our research. The atmosphere in the venue became heavy again, and many alien races looked at Yin Yen with complicated expressions. In fact, many people have this thought. Who wouldn't covet the remains of a legendary Omega-level powerhouse who once reached the infinite level? Perhaps within it lies the secret to breaking through to the Omega level. However, after witnessing Zhang Yi's strength, those races with White Knight-level experts in charge dared not make such a request. But the Nightmare Clan is different. They are much stronger. The position where Yin Yen sat was in the core area of the negotiating table, unlike that of the Fong Wolf Clan and the Ironclad Clan. King Arthur's expression changed on the spot. Morgan's face darkened instantly. Your Excellency of the Nightmare Clan, isn't that inappropriate? That was a gift from the Ismite Clan to Chaos. How can you so easily give it to others to study? This is also disrespectful to the Ismite Clan. Morgan brought out the Eternal Race, attempting to scare Yi away. Representatives of several races that were more inclined to cooperate with the sixth generation of humans also expressed their dissatisfaction. The representative of the Senju clan raised 4 hands and gently crossed them in front of his chest as a way of indicating his disagreement. But I don't care about these things. He was clearly used to speaking with his own logic and used to the position of I have a need, so this should be met. I said I only borrowed it for research. I'll return it when I'm done. What? Do you mean that even 6 generations of you can't give our Nightmare Clan this much face? He glanced indifferently at the crowd, not taking Zhang Yi seriously at all. If you continue to show such disrespect to the Nightmare Clan, I will be very angry. This is already a blatant threat. Other races were either curious, covetous, or indifferent. The atmosphere at the scene, which had just started to improve, was suddenly plunged into a huge crisis. Everyone was waiting for Zhang Yi's reply, because it's obvious that Yin Yen's strength is far more terrifying. Although Zhang Yi was able to defeat the 4 White Knights, he would hardly be a match for Yin Yen. Moreover, besides Yin Yen, there were also other races like the Abyss Clan present, who also coveted Ling's human form. Just as the atmosphere on the scene was tense, something seemingly absurd happened the next second, leaving everyone dumbfounded. Zhang Yi smiled. His smile even carried a hint of relaxation, as if he didn't care. He looked at Yin Yen and said generously and calmly, Sure, since you want to borrow it for research, I believe the Nightmare Clan won't go back on their word. Please take it. Morgan was nearly scared to death. His heart skipped a beat. Hey. King Arthur turned his head, his eyes filled with shock, as if to say, "Are you crazy?" In their eyes, Ling is not only a fighting force, but also a trump card, a forbidden item coveted by all races. At times like these, any signal of loosening the grip is gambling with one's life. But Zhang Yi didn't explain. He simply raised his hand slightly, signaling Ling to stay put. The Nightmare Clan member nodded slightly, seemingly agreeing with this logic, and stepped forward. His footsteps were silent. He had no real weight. He moved closer to Ling, raising a misty hand as if to gently place it on her shoulder, like a researcher about to touch a specimen and extract its structure. In that very instant, the air collapsed. It wasn't an explosive burst of energy, but rather an instantaneous collapse of mental suppression. There was no light, and there was no sound. But the whole world seemed to be paused. All colors were drained, and the consciousness of all the spectators was instantly pierced deep into their brains by countless sharp needles.